you so much. Thank you. Well, we got all sorts of messages going on this morning. Thank you. What an honor it is to be here with these great individuals. You know that? Governor Jeb Bush. What a hero. Don't you love that man? Connie Mack, a great tradition, a great leader, and the next U.S. Senator from Florida. You got to make that happen. This is quite a time for the country. As you know, we're going through trauma in a major part of the country, a kind of trauma you've experienced here in Florida more than once. And it's interesting to see how people come together in a circumstance like this. We've seen folks from all over the country step forward and offer contributions. You see up on our screens, way to give to the Red Cross. People are doing that all over America, gathering their support in any way they can to help the people that have been subjected to this tragedy. And so please, if you have a queen tonight, so thank you for being with her. And Connie Mack, a great tradition, a great leader, and the next U.S. Senator from Florida. You got to make that happen. This is quite a time for the country. As you know, we're going through trauma in a major part of the country, a kind of trauma you've experienced here in Florida more than once. And it's interesting to see how people come together in a circumstance like this. We've seen folks from all over the country step forward and offer contributions. You see up on our screen. I know that we have differing viewpoints with regards to the campaigns up until that point when we get to vote on November 6th. And on November 6th, you're going to see us describe our respective visions for the country. My view is pretty straightforward, and that is I believe that this is a time for America to take a different course, that this should be a turning point for our country. And I say that because $1 or $2, send them along and keep the people who have been in harm's way, who've been damaged either personally or through their property, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. We love all of our fellow citizens. We come together at times like this, and we want to make sure that they have a speedy and quick recovery from their financial and, in many cases, personal loss. This is a real challenge for a nation that normally grows through innovation and risk-taking and startups of all kinds. We also have 1 out of 6 people living in poverty. We need to take a new course. We have 47 million people on food stamps. Think of that. Richest country in the history of the earth, largest economy in the world, and yet 47 million people need food stamps. So I believe that this is the year for us to take a different course. I will bring real change and real reform in a presidency that brings us together. Now, I don't just talk about change. I actually have a plan to execute change and to make it happen. And there are 5 parts to that. And I hope you understand what they are. If you don't, this hasn't happened before in our history. We're at a 30-year low in new business formations. This is a real challenge for a nation that normally grows through innovation and risk-taking and on the earth, not just vertically, but horizontally, and then tap into pockets of oil and gas. And as a result, we have huge new resources in natural gas and oil. And so number 1 for me is take full advantage of our oil, our coal, our gas, our nuclear, and our renewables. And that creates, by the way, a lot of jobs in the energy states, of course, but it also creates a lot of jobs in states that use energy. Because manufacturing of all kinds uses energy, some more than others. And when energy is low cost and abundant, as it will be as we take advantage of these resources, why, we'll bring manufacturing back. It's already beginning to happen. We're going to see more of it happen. We're going to get more manufacturing back in this country. We're going to see this economy take off. With that, number 1. Number 2, trade. It is good for us to be able to trade with other nations. particularly in Latin America. And we have some real advantages in trading with Latin America. Many of our citizens have roots there. We speak the language in many corners of our nation. The time zone, of course, is friendly for us. And you know, Latin America's economy is almost as large as that of China. There's a large middle class and growing middle class. This is a big opportunity for us to trade and to expand the sales of our goods and services in Latin America. But by the way, if nations cheat, and China has cheated over the years, that has to stop. We can't let them steal our jobs with unfair trade practices. Number one is energy. Number two is trade. Number three, we've got to make sure our people are getting the skills they need to succeed. And that's not only training programs for our current workers, but also we've got to make sure that our schools stop being at the bottom of the pile. We're in the bottom third or bottom quartile. Instead, they've got to become world-class, globally competitive. Now, you've done something about that here, Governor. This governor here was the education governor that all of us looked at with great admiration. And he can describe this a lot better than I can. But one of the things he did was grade schools so that parents could determine which schools were succeeding and which ones weren't. And then if a school was not succeeding, why, the kids in that school were given the ability to go to another school. Could be a charter school or another public school. So kids got choice, in part based upon the success of the schools. And I intend to do the same thing, helping all the states across this country. One, make sure that schools are graded so parents can tell which schools are succeeding and which aren't. And number two, the federal dollars that we give to states and localities, there are two big buckets. One is called Title I, the other is called IDEA money. Those dollars I'm going to have funnel the student, so that if a child wants to go to a different school, or his or her parents do, they have the capacity to do that. Now, you might be inclined to think that that was just a brilliant idea by me and my team, but the truth is that about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I happened to be meeting in the office of one former Governor, Jeb Bush, and I said, what can I do to encourage school choice? And he said, well, you could always connect federal dollars to school choice, which is precisely what I've done. Thank you, Governor. Number four, if we're going to deal with the real problems America has and get entrepreneurs to start businesses and big companies to decide to expand in America and put their dollars here, they're going to have to be convinced that we're not on the road to Greece. Because if they think America is headed for economic crisis, they're not going to risk their life savings or risk their capital to build in America and invest in America. And that's one reason why it's so critical for us to finally cut federal spending, to cap federal spending, and get on track to a balanced budget. And number five, I want to champion small business. We've got to help small business grow and thrive. You know, about 2/3 of the jobs in America come from small business. And so we want to make it easier for small businesses to open their doors and keep in business. And you know, you all understand that to have an economy work and businesses to work and people to be able to hire, that there have to be regulations and laws. You couldn't have people opening up a bank in their backyard and, you know, taking money from their neighbor and sending it to someone else. I mean, it'd be a mess. So you got to have laws and regulations. But you also have to make sure that the regulations are up to date and modern, and they're not designed to be so burdensome that they crush certain competitors. And what's problems America has, and get entrepreneurs to start businesses and big companies to decide to expand in America and put their dollars here, they're going to have business and get small business growing again. And one more thing that relates to businesses and jobs, and that's taxation. You know, we have to tax in order to have the revenue, to have a strong military, and to be able to care for people who need our care. that can't care for themselves. So we're going to have taxes, but we like them as low as we can get them. And one of our challenges right now is the taxes we charge. They're not going to risk their life savings or risk their capital to build in America and invest in America. And that's one reason why it's so critical for us to finally, you all understand that to have who has an electronics business, 4 employees, and he said that he and his son calculated how much they spend in taxes every year of what they earn in their business. And he took the income tax and the payroll tax and the state income tax and the real estate tax and the gasoline tax, and they added it up, and it was over half of what they made. Now, that's not very hard, with income tax alone being 35%. And he said, now think of this. You risk your life savings to start a business, and oftentimes these businesses don't succeed. But if they do, then the government wants more than half of what you're making. And so that keeps us from creating jobs. By the way, do you know what Canada's done? Instead of a 35% tax on businesses, they've cut it to 15%. Why? They've done that. And by the way, the Europeans have done it. They've lowered their tax rate in many cases down to an average of about 25%. They realize we want businesses here, because if there are businesses here, more people have jobs. If more people have... And one of our challenges right now is the taxes we charge small business and big business is a tax rate of 35%. Now, that's just the income tax. That's just the... Now, all these good things, those 5 things, taking advantage of energy, number 1. Number 2, making sure that we have trade that works for us. Number 3, fixing our education systems for adults and for young people. Number 4, balancing the budget. And number 5, being a real champion as a nation of small business. For those things to happen, it's going to require something that Washington talks about but hasn't done in a long, long time. And that is truly reaching across the aisle and finding good Democrats and good Republicans that will come together and find common ground and work in the interest of the American people, not just in the interest of politics. Income tax, that keeps us from creating jobs. By the way, do you know what Canada's done? Instead of a 35% tax on businesses, they've cut it to 15%. Why? My legislature was 85% Democrat. It was not lost on me that I would get nothing done unless I was able to have a relationship of respect and trust with people across the aisle. And I was fortunate that the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, as I came in, were men of integrity. And I remember the Senate President said to me, you know, the campaign... By the way, the Europeans have done it. They've lowered their tax rate in many cases down to an average of about 25%. They realize we want businesses here because of the gap. And yet, instead of fighting each other and trying to blame each other, we recognized both parties took some responsibility for the deficit, and we had to work together. And so we cut spending. We didn't just slow down the rate of spending. We actually cut spending in our state. And then we cut taxes as well. We made our state a little more business friendly. And by the way, we were able to get to a point where a $3 billion budget gap in my first year turned into a $2 billion rainy day fund by the time I left. This can happen. It has to happen in Washington. We've got to come together. And you should know, I could not be in this race if I were not an optimist. I believe in the future of this country. I know we have huge challenges, but I'm not frightened by them. I'm invigorated by the challenge. We're going to take on these challenges. We're going to overcome them. And I know that because of the experiences I've had across my lifetime. The people I've met across this country give me confidence in the future. We are a can-do, hard-working, optimistic, innovative, creative people. And we need leaders who draw on those skills and those propensities to get this country going again. I have to tell you one of my favorite stories I've been telling across the country. I was serving as a leader in the Boy Scouts of America. Some scouters here, all right? And I was at the end of a big Formica table next to the American flag, at a Boy Scout Court of Honor. That's where the Boy Scouts get their Eagle Scout awards and other awards. And the person speaking was the Scoutmaster from Monument, Colorado. And he was describing his troop and their desire to have a very special American flag. They bought one with gold tassels around the outside. They had it flown above the Capitol Dome to make it special. When it came home, they said they wanted it to go on the space shuttle. They contacted NASA. Remarkably, NASA agreed. Took their flag and put it on the space shuttle. He said, you can't imagine how proud the boys were to be in their homerooms at school, watching the TV set, watching the shuttle Challenger launch into the air, and then they saw it explode on the TV screen. And he said he waited a couple of weeks, and then he called NASA and said, have you found any remnant of our flag? And they had not. And so he called every week, month after month, nothing. Finally, he stopped calling, and then he happened to see an article some weeks later in a paper which described the debris that had been found from the Challenger disaster, and it mentioned a flag. So he called NASA again, and they informed him that in fact they had a presentation they wanted to make to the boys. And so he gathered the troop together, and NASA came in and presented them with a container, a little plastic container. He said, we opened it up, and there was our flag in perfect condition. And he said, that's it on the flagpole next to Mr. Romney at the end of the table. And so I looked at that flag, and I reached over and grabbed it and pulled it out. And it was as if electricity was running through my arm. Because I thought about the heroes in our space program, the people who put themselves in harm's way out of a desire to expand learning and innovation. For us, it seems to be part of the American character that we live for something bigger than ourselves. We take risks in our lives for things that are bigger. I think of the men and women who serve in our military, who put themselves in harm's way for our freedom, for our prosperity, for our future. I wonder, I have a favorite verse from one of our national hymns, America the Beautiful. You know, the song begins by describing the beauty of the characteristics of America. But the later verse describes the beauty of the character of the American heart when it says, "O beautiful for heroes, proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life." Were our veterans, please raise your hands and be recognized, and members of the armed forces. Heroes of all kinds. It's said that you don't have to be larger than life to be a hero, just larger than yourself. And that's part of the American spirit. I have a sister who has 8 children, and 7 of her 8 children are married and have kids of their own. The 8th was born Down syndrome. My sister Lynn is now in her 70s. Her husband passed away a couple of years ago. And Jeffrey, her Down syndrome son, is 43. She has devoted a large part of her life, and all of her life now, to caring for Jeffrey and making sure he has as abundant a life as he can possibly have. A hero to me. I think of all the single moms across America, all the single moms that are scrimping and saving in order to make sure they have a good meal on the table at the end of the day for their children. I think of the moms and dads who have 2 jobs right now, or one has a day job and one has a night job. They hardly see each other. And why? So they can buy the clothes for their kids that won't make their kids stand out at school. I think of all the parents at Christmas time. It seems to be part of the American character that we are beautiful for heroes, proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved. The American character, to live for things greater than ourselves. And this is a time when the people of America are going to have to do that. I'm convinced that you here in Florida have very clear eyes when it comes to an understanding of what America faces right now. And I know you have full hearts. There's a fictional TV show in which a team I guess it's a real TV show, but with a fictional football team. The team, as they're running out of the playing field against typically long odds in this show, they touch a sign on the way out of the locker room. It says, "Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose." I'm convinced that's true, you guys. Clear eyes here in Florida, full hearts. We can't lose. We're going to take back America. We're going to keep it strong. We're going to overcome our challenges and keep America the hope of the earth. I need your vote on November 6th. Get out and vote early. I want to thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for I want to thank these gentlemen for being here. I know the Attorney General is here. Where's Pam Bondi? Where's Pam? I'm looking. I know she's here. Oh, she's right back here. And Jeff Atwater, who's been my co-chairman of the state. Thank you to them as well. Thank you to you. Please vote early. Please. I said Adam. I hope I said Adam Putnam. Did I not say that? I did not say that. Adam Putnam is my co-chair. He is the Commissioner of Agriculture, and also, as you probably know, Jeff Atwater is also my co-chair. I appreciate their help in the state. Please make sure that you go out and vote early. If you have $1 extra, send it to the Red Cross for our friends that are in harm's way. I love you. I appreciate it. And together we're going to win. Thank you.